Welcome to lab number 2, compounding a topical cream. This video will demonstrate very quickly the techniques needed to compound a cream. Using your LFW, locate the method that we'll be using, which is the sandwich method. The levigation method will also be demonstrated for educational purposes. To begin, have your active ingredient ready to be weighed. Weigh into a weigh boat by tearing out first, placing the weigh boat on, and measuring the appropriate amount of your active ingredient, clotrimazole. Carefully set the powder aside and tear out the balance again, this time zeroing out the jar. Using a micro spatula or a big spatula, carefully transfer cream into the jar. You'll want to use just enough cream to cover the bottom layer of the jar. This will create the bottom part of the sandwich in this sandwich method. Carefully bring the powder to the top of the jar and use your micro spatula to guide the powder into the jar. Once your powder is safely transferred into the jar, use the propylene glycol to wet the powder. You'll want to use no more than about 2 milliliters, applying drop-wise. Apply the drops around the surface of the powder. The purpose of this is to wet the powder to ease it into mixing. Once your powder appears to be wet, take the cream, using your big spatula or micro spatula, create the top layer of the sandwich. Note the weight. You'll continue adding cream carefully until you've reached the QS weight. Clean up any excess cream. You may need to use your rubber spatula to clean the metal spatula. This completes your sandwich, and you can take the jar to the automated mixer. You'll apply the jar to the mixer in the manner demonstrated in the lab, and you'll put the appropriate settings and mix time. Once mixing has concluded, your mixture is now complete. Remove from the mixer and inspect for cleanliness. If there's any excess cream on the jar, wipe it clean with a paper towel. Apply the patient label once the jar is cleaned. Levigation method. The levigation method begins the same way as the previous method. You'll want to weigh out your active ingredient, your powder, and set it aside. Next, tear out the balance and measure out the required amount of base. You'll want to weigh the base out into a new weigh boat and set aside. Using a micro spatula, carefully transfer your powder to the glass slab. Next, you'll want to use another tool to transfer the cream across from the powder. At this point, you'll want to wet the powder using the propylene glycol. In the same manner as before, apply drop-wise, using no more than about 2 mLs. The goal here is to create a paste with the powder, using the propylene glycol. You can use your metal spatula to mix in the propylene glycol to the active ingredient until you get a pasty consistency. If it's too liquidy, it'll be very difficult to levigate into the cream. Manual levigation is essentially mixing with a tool. In the same manner as with capsules, you'll want to geometrically dilute and then levigate, using a 1-to-1 method. Begin by mixing in approximately a 1-to-1 volume of cream to your paste mixture. Levigate by applying light pressure back and forth, slightly tilting your spatula and pressing into the glass slab, going across. Unlike the capsules, you won't have a visual indicator to indicate uniformity. You'll have to rely on your technique and your understanding of the principles. After the first round of levigation, continue using a 1-to-1 ratio. Use the rest of the base if it's under a 1-to-1 ratio, and continue levigating. Once levigation is complete, which should take probably about 5 to 10 minutes, you may now transfer the cream into a new jar. Metal and rubber spatulas are the best tools for this job. Use care not to get the jar too dirty. Clean up any excess cream with the paper towel. Make sure the jar is clean before applying the patient label, and this completes your manual levigation.